New Zealand has experienced few terrorist incidents in its short history and the threat is generally regarded as very low. However, the Security Intelligence Service has warned against complacency. This article serves as a list and compilation of past acts of terrorism, attempts of terrorism, and other such items pertaining to terrorist activities within New Zealand. Significant acts of terrorism include the bombing of the Rainbow Warrior in 1985 and the Christchurch mosque shootings in 2019, which killed 51 people and injured 40 others. A common definition of terrorism is the systematic use of violence to create a general climate of fear in a population and thereby to bring about a particular political objective. However, unlike some other jurisdictions, New Zealand has actually defined terrorism in an Act of Parliament. The major piece of terrorist-related legislation in New Zealand is the Terrorism Suppression Act, 2002. The act was introduced by the government to strengthen its counter-terrorism powers. In response to the terrorist attacks of September 11, 2001 in the United States, the Terrorism Suppression Act defines terrorism, in New Zealand or elsewhere, as an act that is carried out for the purpose of advancing an ideological, political, or religious cause and with the following intention. Alternatively, instead of the listed outcomes, it occurs in a situation of armed conflict and is, at the time and in the place that it occurs, in accordance with rules of international law applicable to the conflict. The Security Intelligence Service stated in its 2006 report that the risk of a terrorist attack on New Zealand or New Zealand interests is low, but also warned against complacency. It has stated that there are individuals in New Zealand linked to international terrorism. Although the Green Party and others have dismissed these claims once identified as a threat to New Zealand, Ahmed Zori became a citizen. In another case, a man named Raid Muhammad Abdullah Ali was deported from New Zealand after being linked to the hijacker of American Airlines Flight 77 which hit the Pentagon on the 11th of September 2001. In response to the Christchurch terrorist attacks of the 15th of March 2019, the country's threat level was temporarily raised from low to high and was later lowered to medium on the 17th of April 2019. Most attacks, or attempted acts, of terrorism in New Zealand have been bombings as a form of protest. On the 30th of April 1951, during an industrial dispute, a rail bridge was blown up near Huntly, Waikato. The train drivers were warned and the bombing severely disrupted coal supplies. Sidney Holland, the Prime Minister of the time, called it an infamous act of terrorism. Academic Lance Beath writes that the bombing might not be considered a terrorist incident because there was no intent to kill or injure people and the only objective was blocking supplies. In 1969-70 there were multiple bombings and attempted bombings of military bases and other sites related to the New Zealand military. The bombings were in protest against New Zealand's involvement in the Vietnam War. On one occasion, in 1969, 4 students who were protesting against the war attempted to blow up the flagpole at Waitangi Treaty Grounds, the site of Waitangi Day celebrations. On the 18th of November 1982, a suicide bomb attack was made against a facility housing the main computer system of the New Zealand Police, Courts, Ministry of Transport and other law enforcement agencies. In Wanganui, the attacker, a punk rock anarchist named Neil Roberts, was the only person killed, and the computer system was undamaged. On the 29th of March 1984, a suitcase bomb was left in the foyer of the Trades Hall in Wellington. The Trades Hall was the headquarters of a number of trade unions and it is most commonly assumed that unions were the target of the bombing. Ernie Abbott, the building's caretaker, was killed when he attempted to move the suitcase, which is believed to have contained 3 sticks of gelignite triggered by a mercury switch. To this day, the perpetrator has never been identified. It was revealed in a 2019 episode of Cold Case that police had a prime suspect, a retired marine engineer with explosives expertise and anti-union attitudes. However, the evidence was considered circumstantial and insufficient to lay charges. On the 10th of July 1985, The Greenpeace vessel Rainbow Warrior was sunk by the French Foreign Intelligence Service. The Direction Générale de la Sécurité Extérieure. Greenpeace had planned to use the Rainbow Warrior as part of protest efforts over French nuclear testing at Morurua, and DGSE divers sank the vessel by detonating mines against its hull while it was berthed in Auckland. The crew left the ship, but one person, Fernando Pereira, was drowned when he returned to a cabin to retrieve his cameras. Just before the vessel sank, France initially denied responsibility for the attack, but later admitted its role. Two of the French agents involved,